The collapse of the Immortal's domain is no simple matter to enter. Although the Thunder Immortal realm has been opened many times over countless years, there are still some restrictions in certain areas that have yet to be broken. These restrictions are often too complicated and vast, with some being places even cultivators cannot touch. Brother Su, look here. The restriction here is the fourth method of the 8 immortal restriction techniques. It focuses on causing environmental disturbances around the area to conceal divine senses. On a fragment continent with blackened soil, Li Yuan squatted down, touching the earth, and said in a low voice, "If I'm not mistaken, once this restriction is broken, there should be an immortal palace here." Beside him, Wang Lin focused on the area and nodded, asking, "So you mean this restriction is primarily based on the soil?" The fragment continent they were on wasn't very large. The earth was entirely black, the sky unusually dark, with no lightning in sight, though distant thunder rumbled from above. Within a radius of 1,000 miles, there was no one to be seen except for the two of them. Standing there, it gave off an overwhelming sense of desolation. Li Yuan nodded and smiled. "Brother Su, I admire your understanding of restrictions. Over the past half-month, whenever I pointed something out, you could immediately identify it." He scooped up a handful of soil and placed it into his storage pouch, then added, "Brother Su, you should also take some of this soil. Once we leave the Thunder Immortal realm and lose the environment of this immortal restriction, it might undergo some changes. If that happens, you can follow me back to the Li family and use it to craft a seal compass." "Thank you, brotherly." Wang Lin smiled slightly, squatting down to gather some soil into his own storage pouch. "It's actually I who should thank you. Without you, Brother Wang, I would likely have perished long ago, not to mention escaping the slave mark," Li Yuan said, feeling deeply moved. He spoke with sincerity. Half a month ago, after he regained consciousness, the initial confusion slowly faded, and memories began to surface, especially the actions under the control of the slave mark's residual soul, which disturbed both his mind and body. Now that everything was clear, Li Yuan felt genuine gratitude for Wang Lin. Without hesitation, he shared his knowledge of restrictions with Wang Lin as a way to express his thanks. "Once we return to the family, I'll take you to the Ancestral Hall of Inheritance, where we can pay respects to our ancestors, and I'll teach you the Annihilation Seal to repay this great favor," Li Yuan said, looking at Wang Lin with clear eyes. Wang Lin took a few steps back, cupped his fist toward Li Yuan, and said nothing. However, his expression grew solemn. The Annihilation Seal, one of the 4 ancient seals, was something Li Yuan had introduced to him over the past half-month. This technique was not simply a form of divine ability, but distinctly different from immortal art, though just as powerful. To learn this technique, one had to do so in a specific inheritance location. In all the world, the Li family was the sole lineage that still held the Annihilation Seal. It's a shame that this immortal restriction's 4th method is incomplete. It was likely broken years ago, but the person who broke it used crude methods, Li Yuan said, looking at the ground and thinking for a moment. He then pressed his right index finger to his forehead, and a black line shot out as he raised his hand. The line immediately formed a seal, which he pressed into the earth with a snap. Break. The moment he spoke, the ground trembled. The soil around the spot he touched rippled like waves, and in an instant, everything around them shattered like broken glass. Before Wang Lin, an immortal mountain palace emerged. The mountain was not very high, but halfway up, there stood a magnificent palace. However, the mountain was pitted and scarred, as if countless immortal herbs had once been planted there but had all been uprooted. Only ordinary trees swayed in the wind, giving off a sense of desolation. The palace was also in ruin, only retaining a semblance of majesty. "As expected, things have turned out as I anticipated," Li Yuan said with a wry smile, looking back at Wang Lin. Wang Lin smiled slightly and said, "Brotherly, your understanding of restrictions is truly impressive. Over the past half-month, everywhere we've been, you've been able to spot the restrictions immediately. Although others usually get there first, if this continues, we might just discover a complete immortal palace." The 4 ancient forbidden techniques, when practiced to the highest level, grant immense divine abilities to seal all things, from immortals and demons to ordinary beasts. Li Yuan spoke with confidence. The Plum Blossom 18 restrictions are derived from the Annihilation Seal. However, when they were passed down in ancient times, the world became aware of them. The Annihilation Seal possesses such power. In the Luotian star domain, there must be many who seek to learn it. Wang Lin glanced at Li Yuan and said. Li Yuan smiled wryly and nodded. "To be honest, during my countless years under the slave mark in the Li family, The annihilation seal has been passed down 7 times. Each time, it was only done out of necessity. But Li Yuan looked at Wang Lin and slowly said, although what they learned is also the annihilation seal, my Li family has no secrets when it comes to the restriction seal formula. We even allow it to be understood in the place of inheritance. However, without the heart seal within the body, it's not truly the annihilation seal. The heart seal, only the family heads of each generation possess the inheritance. After we leave this Thunder Immortal realm, I will permanently give you half of the heart seal in the ancestral hall of inheritance. Wang Lin remained silent for a moment, then clasped his fists in respect once again. Li Yuan quickly waved his hand, about to speak, when he suddenly let out a soft exclamation, his eyes narrowing as he stared intensely at the palace on the Immortal Mountain. Su brother, look over there, Li Yuan said. Wang Lin raised his head and looked. The palace, though in ruins, didn't seem unusual at first glance, but the longer he looked, the more he noticed something off. The tree behind the palace, only the left side is moving, while the right side has not changed at all. Wang Lin's eyes flickered as he spoke slowly. Li Yuan's eyes widened in amazement. He glanced at Wang Lin and nodded, saying, even without learning the annihilation seal, Su brother, your observational skills alone are enough to surpass many seal masters. Wang Lin smiled and replied, it seems our luck is good. Li Yuan laughed heartily, and together, he and Wang Lin flew toward the Immortal Mountain. They quickly arrived beside the palace, and as they got closer, Wang Lin immediately sensed a sinister aura emanating from the motionless side of the tree. This eerie aura carried a sense of danger. Wang Lin stopped in his tracks, and Li Yuan almost simultaneously stopped beside him. Under the tree, 2 skeletal remains lay, one wearing rough leather armor. The armor was coarse, with natural cracks and marks on it. As soon as Wang Lin saw this leather armor, his eyes widened, and for the first time, a rare look of disbelief appeared in his gaze. This is... He couldn't quite explain the feeling, but as soon as he saw the armor, a wave of sorrow washed over him. He looked again carefully, and indeed, it was a leather armor made from the skin of an ancient god. Though he didn't know which star-level ancient god it was from, seeing this armor reminded Wang Lin of his true body. Su brother, do you recognize this? Li Yuan asked in a low voice. Wang Lin shook his head and calmly replied, I don't, but it does resemble something from an old acquaintance. Li Yuan didn't ask further, instead focusing on the tree beside the bones, his eyes gleaming with deduction. After a moment, he formed a seal with his hands and pointed forward, immediately causing a restriction to appear in his hand, which transformed into 18 plum blossoms that flew toward the tree. After landing, the space around the tree began to distort, rippling with countless waves. Even the bones beneath the tree twisted along with these ripples. Finally, the sound of shattering glass rang out, and everything in front of them collapsed in an instant. The tree was gone, the bones were gone, and only a teleportation array, glowing with soft light, appeared before Wang Lin and Li Yuan. This is the 3rd technique of the 8 immortal restriction techniques, centered around mirage illusion. The bones we saw just now were not really lying under the tree. Li Yuan looked at the teleportation array and said in a deep voice, using the bones as bait to lure people in, and then killing them through the changes in this restriction. I wonder how many have died here over the years, Wang Lin nodded, as he had also realized this. If the bones were real, they wouldn't have remained preserved until now. This is a murderous restriction. It seems that the leather armor is likely an extremely tempting immortal artifact. Li Yuan's eyes gleamed coldly. Wang Lin pondered for a moment and slowly said, what I don't know is whether this restriction was truly left by immortals, or if it was set up as a trap by later generations. Li Yuan also fell into deep thought. He had considered this as well. After a while, he slowly spoke. No matter what, I can confirm that this restriction has only just been broken. After all, I observed it for quite a while earlier, and there were no signs of it being broken and reorganized before. Moreover, this restriction is ancient, so it somewhat fits with the timeline. Perhaps the long passage of time caused some changes within this restriction, leaking out some of its light, exposing some of the scenes inside to the restriction eye. Wang Lin's gaze sharpened as he spoke slowly. Li Yuan pondered briefly and nodded. What Su brother said makes some sense. 7 out of 10 of this is as you said. Of course, we can't rule out the possibility that someone intentionally set this up to kill people and seize treasures. Both Wang Lin and Li Yuan were sharp-minded individuals, and after a brief discussion, they had already deduced a near-perfect explanation. Just then, The teleportation array that appeared after breaking the restriction wavered slightly, as though it had been hidden away for too long. Its sudden appearance clashed with the foreign energies and immortal chi, as if on the verge of collapsing. Even at the edges of the array, countless tiny whirlpools had already formed, signaling the impending collapse. Some illusions leaked from these whirlpools, though they were fragmented scenes. Wang Lin could still make out ancient buildings and the remains of corpses. Wang Lin and Li Yuan both noticed the scene almost simultaneously, their eyes instantly narrowing. It seems Su Xiong's prediction was correct. How about we investigate further and see what's going on? Li Yuan said with a smile. Wang Lin was about to speak, but at that moment, a powerful divine sense suddenly spread from the distance, sweeping through the air with overwhelming force. The divine sense was so strong that it even seemed to contain divine abilities within it. As it expanded, the dark clouds in the sky instantly retreated, as if they dared not interfere, leaving the divine sense free to sweep across the fragment continent. Li Yuan's expression changed. As the divine sense approached, he felt as if he could hardly breathe, as if it were a tangible weight pressing down on him, like a mountain. His immortal power surged uncontrollably, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. The divine sense merely brushed past, but it quickly retreated, locking onto them with a fierce, unblinking focus. Wang Lin was even more shocked. The divine sense felt oddly familiar. Without thinking, he suddenly moved and headed straight for the teleportation array. Li Yuan, pale and nearly frightened out of his wits, quickly followed behind Wang Lin. They were not far from the teleportation array, and with a burst of speed, they were about to reach it when, at that moment, the divine sense grew even more violent. In an instant, the entire area within 100 zhang was turned blood red. A thin red mist spread out, twisting and transforming into vengeful spirits, shrieking with a chilling cry, and charging towards Wang Lin. Restriction, Wang Lin shouted, grabbing Li Yuan by the collar and rushing toward the teleportation array. Li Yuan, quick-witted as always, immediately understood Wang Lin's intent. If they both cast spells simultaneously, their speed would be affected, so in this crisis, Wang Lin would focus on speed, while he would handle the offense. It was the best choice. Allowing Wang Lin to grab him, Li Yuan didn't hesitate. With immense speed, he quickly formed hand seals, summoning countless restrictions. These restrictions, as soon as they appeared, quickly multiplied into 18, and almost instantly, a massive number of restrictions spread out. These restrictions blocked the vengeful spirits made from the red mist. Wang Lin didn't look back. Holding on to Li Yuan, he quickly stepped forward, nearing the edge of the teleportation array, about to step in. At that moment, a cold snort echoed from the divine sense, which was wildly converging around them. The chilling voice reverberated. Blood void freeze. As soon as those words were spoken, the entire area within 100 zhang was rapidly frozen, as though the very heavens and earth were squeezing together, attempting to crush everything within that space. Wang Lin was just one step away from the teleportation array, but as he lifted his foot, it felt as if a mountain had bound him, causing his momentum to slow. Even his body felt as if it were being squeezed by immense force, as if trying to freeze him in place. It wasn't just Wang Lin, Li Yuan felt the same. The pressure was so powerful, it was like the force of heavenly might. It felt as if an invisible giant hand was descending from the sky, scooping up the entire area, its fingers tightening to crush everything. Wang Lin's face turned pale, cold sweat dripping down. He couldn't even raise his hand to take out his magical artifact. Through his blurred vision, he faintly saw a red glow flickering in the distant void, rushing straight towards them. Within the glow, a red figure quickly took shape. The red figure exuded an intense hatred, a hatred so strong it could cross 2 star domains. The killing intent within was unimaginably thick. The red glow wasn't aimed at the void, but at Li Yuan. The feeling of being frozen around Li Yuan's body loosened slightly the moment the red glow swept in. His face turned ashen, but without hesitation, he quickly raised his right hand to press against his forehead. In an instant, a black line, as thick as an infant's arm, shot out from his forehead, transforming into a restriction sigil in front of him. With a low mutter, Li Yuan shouted, "Annihilation Heart Seal." Immediately, the sigil began to pulse, rapidly expanding. As the red figure approached, it exploded. Boom. A massive sound echoed, creating a shockwave that destabilized the surrounding area. The shattered restrictions did not dissipate but instead transformed into thousands of black lines, forming strange patterns as they spread out in all directions. These restrictions were interconnected in an unusual way. As they spread, Li Yuan's face grew even paler, clearly showing the immense burden of casting the true annihilation seal. With a single word, the restrictions quickly spread throughout the area, converging around the red figure. In an instant, the red figure's entire body flared with bloodlight, as though a blood sea had appeared in the sky. As the restrictions closed in, the figure burst through, but immediately the restrictions self-destructed, creating a violent echo that shook the entire sky. At that moment, the entire fragment continent showed signs of instability, as if it were on the verge of collapse. At the moment the pressure around them eased, Wang Lin grabbed Li Yuan and stepped forward with his right foot, instantly entering the collapsing teleportation array. A flash of light burst from the array, and the two figures vanished. Just as they disappeared, Wang Lin slammed his left hand down on the array, causing it to collapse into shimmering specks of light that scattered and vanished on the spot. Within 100 zhang radius, silence reigned. The blood-red figure slowly stepped forward and stood at the spot where the teleportation array had been, falling into silent contemplation. After a long while, the figure raised his right foot and stomped fiercely on the ground. A massive fissure burst open beneath his feet, spreading like a frenzied dragon, twisting wildly across the land. Amid cracking sounds, the fissure split down the middle, then split again. In mere moments, the ground was riddled with savage cracks. His cultivation had surpassed the glimpse of Nirvana stage and broken through the threshold of the Thunder Immortal realm. Like a storm sweeping through the fragment continent, the destructive power expanded until the entire land was covered in jagged fissures. Even the sky was now filled with countless spatial fractures. The land collapsed. This fragment of the Thunder Immortal realm crumbled, disintegrated, and vast stretches of ground vanished, triggering a chain reaction. More and more spatial rifts tore through the sky, resembling grim, gaping mouths that devoured everything. Chunks of shattered land dissolved into the void, some even drawn up into the sky, swallowed by those eerie maws with unknown ends. Half an hour later, the sky was no longer the sky, and the land had become void. One fragment of the Thunder Immortal realm had permanently collapsed. The violent upheaval sent shockwaves through the few cultivators of the Luotian star domain still on this land. Horrified and desperate, they burst forth in panic, attempting to flee. The fear of death, just like the collapse of this fragment, shattered their spirits. In a frantic bid to survive, they fled, though few would escape the crumbling ruin. The collapse created a massive vortex, threatening to suck everything in. From afar, thunder chain voids could be seen stretching taut, pulled by the vortex and drawn toward its center. The moment these chains shifted, they yanked on the lands tethered to their far ends, setting the entire Thunder Immortal realm groaning with a thunderous rumble, slowly shifting. Yet, the one who had caused it all was utterly indifferent. Even if the entire Thunder Immortal realm collapsed, it wouldn't stir him. All he wanted was his daughter. Wang Lin, brat, next time, you won't get away. The blood-red figure turned and, with a single step, vanished into the void. This figure was none other than the Blood Ancestor. Since arriving in the Thunder Immortal realm, he had sought neither treasure nor immortal arts. Instead, he moved with unmatched speed, traversing fragment after fragment of the continent. Each time he reached a new fragment, he would immediately release his divine sense, sweep the area, and leave. The sky was dim, occasionally flashing with the light of restriction seals. Looking up from the ground, one could see the oppressive sky looming low, a dark canopy pressing down with an overwhelming sense of suffocation. The land was dotted with low hills, forming uneven valleys. All around was silent. Only in the sky did cracks sometimes arc open, leaking chilling air before slowly closing again, their sharp whistles echoing faintly. This was the only sound in this place. A brown altar, 10 zhang tall, stood on the ground. Its many steps were cracked and damaged, with several fissures reaching all the way to the top. At that moment, two figures appeared on the platform several zhang above the altar, emerging in a flicker of light. Wang Lin stepped forward, his face dark and somber. His heart still trembled from what had just happened. Death had come so close once again. If not for the divine ability of his third eye, he might not have made it. And without Li Yuan's annihilation seal, even with the teleportation array right in front of them, escape would have been impossible. Blood Ancestor, Wang Lin frowned. At that moment, Li Yuan also stepped out from the array, blood spilling from the corner of his mouth, He immediately sat cross-legged and began meditative breathing. Wang Lin sat in silence, also cross-legged, protecting Li Yuan while spreading his divine sense to observe the surroundings. Moments later, he withdrew his divine sense, his expression even grimmer. The sky here occasionally split open with rifts capable of devouring divine sense. The moment his sense spread, it attracted those rifts like a lure. Even so, this place is still safe. Wang Lin gazed silently at a distant valley, lost in thought. The blood ancestor has actually entered the Luotian star domain. The moment he appeared, he gave me no chance to speak. He tried to capture me alive right away. Clearly, he meant to search my soul for Yao Shishue's whereabouts. Wang Lin touched his storage pouch. If I hand over Yao Shishue, will the blood ancestor continue to hunt me down? Wang Lin pondered, as the immortal guard stepped forward behind him to protect Li Yuan. He waved his hand, creating a barrier around them. Then, with a flick of his hand, a restriction orb flew out from his storage pouch, landing and instantly expanding into a large orb over a meter high, blooming like a lotus. As the restriction orb spread open, Yao Shishue was revealed, sitting cross-legged inside it, her long hair falling to her shoulders. The century-long confinement had left her looking pale and worn. At that moment, her eyelashes fluttered, and her eyes slowly opened. Upon seeing Wang Lin, there was a momentary daze, but it quickly shifted to clarity. Her expression was devoid of any anger or joy, simply gazing at Wang Lin calmly. After a long pause, a hint of sarcasm appeared at the corner of her mouth as she spoke flatly. I can feel the remnants of my father's blood art on you. And I can also feel your fear. Wang Lin stared at Yoshishue, remaining silent. Do you intend to release me? Or are you begging me to ask my father not to kill you? Wang Lin, am I right? Yoshishue's sarcasm grew more pronounced. I could convince my father to spare your life, because I won't let you die just like that. The calmness in Yoshishue's eyes disappeared, replaced by deep hatred. Wang Lin furrowed his brows and said indifferently, So, it seems that whether I release you or not, my fate will be the same. Yoshishue looked at Wang Lin coldly and said, You dare not kill me. Killing me would mean releasing me. If you seal me away somewhere, you'll face my father's relentless pursuit. Sooner or later, he will find you, and I will still escape. Wang Lin's gaze grew colder, his eyes flashing with a chilling light. He raised his right hand and quickly cast several restrictions, which landed on Yao Shishue. The restriction orb contracted instantly, turning into a light sphere. Wang Lin caught it and placed it back into his storage pouch. He stood up, gazing into the distance, his expression thoughtful. Release or not release? It doesn't depend on me, but on the blood ancestor. Wang Lin's eyes flashed with a sharp light. He then focused his mind, dispersing the surrounding restrictions and looked at Li Yuan, who was breathing deeply. After a moment, Li Yuan slowly opened his eyes, exhaled a long breath, and his gaze revealed shock as he spoke. Su brother, who is that person? Wang Lin sighed inwardly and took a few steps back, cupping his fist toward Li Yuan and said, This matter is my fault, Li brother. That person is called the blood ancestor. His cultivation is unfathomable. I have some past conflicts with him. Li brother, once we leave this place, you should go first to avoid being dragged further into this. Li Yuan remained silent and bitterly smiled. Su brother, that person's cultivation is no ordinary second-step cultivator. Though my annihilation seal is only at the 4th level, even using my heart seal, I still couldn't land a hit on him. He's probably not even at the shattered nirvana stage, but a pure nirvana cultivator. With such cultivation, he is at the peak in the Luotian star domain. How did you offend someone like him? Sigh, if my annihilation seal were at the 7th level, I might have a chance to seal him. Wang Lin's expression remained calm as he slowly said, Li brother, we should first search for an exit here and leave this place. Li Yuan sighed and after a moment of contemplation, said, Although his cultivation is high, if we don't provoke him and simply avoid him, it's not without a way. Fine, let's put this matter aside for now and search for an exit, as you say. He stood up and looked around. Don't let your divine sense leak out here, or the spatial rifts will swallow you. Wang Lin said slowly, his gaze falling on a distant valley. Li Yuan looked puzzled but moved quickly, jumping down from the altar and picking up some soil, inspecting it carefully. Then he stepped forward, breaking a branch off a tree, placed it in his mouth, and the strange light in his eyes grew stronger. Su brother, let me borrow your puppet for a moment. Li Yuan began to float slowly, and as he did, spatial rifts appeared around him, threatening to devour him. Wang Lin's eyes flickered as he watched Li Yuan's actions, sensing that he had discovered something new about this place. He focused his mind, and the immortal guard puppet immediately lit up with golden light, rising from the ground and moving to Li Yuan's side. If any rifts appeared, the immortal guard puppet would immediately strike them with a punch, creating a vortex to disperse them. Though not perfect, it did help. As Li Yuan flew higher, the number of spatial rifts increased. The immortal guard puppet formed a golden whirlwind around him, continuously punching, and a booming sound filled the air. Li Yuan reached midair, and his gaze flashed as he looked into the distance, his expression one of shock, even disbelief. Suddenly, beneath him, a massive rift several times larger than the usual ones appeared. As it opened, a wild suction force emanated, like a terrifying mouth, immediately pulling toward Li Yuan. Li Yuan's face changed. At this moment, a large number of rifts appeared around him, and even the immortal guard puppet was struggling to keep up. In an instant, he found himself in great peril. Wang Lin stepped forward, leaping into the air as he tapped his storage pouch. Instantly, the rivers and mountains screen appeared, transforming into a vast landscape that spread across the sky, covering most of the rifts. Taking this opportunity, Wang Lin moved like lightning, reaching out to grab Li Yuan from a distance and quickly pulling him back. As the rift below them threatened to swallow them up, the two, along with the immortal guards, landed safely on the ground. At this moment, the sky's painting seemed to be torn with countless small tears, showing signs of damage. Wang Lin's expression grew serious. He retracted his hand, causing the rivers and mountains map to vanish. The screen returned to his hand and was placed back into the storage pouch. Brother Su, do you know where this place is? Li Yuan's face showed excitement, but disbelief still lingered in his eyes. He took a deep breath and said excitedly, Brother Su, immortals rarely use storage pouches. Generally, they open up their own space. When an immortal dies, this space does not collapse, but it's extremely difficult to open again. Wang Lin was momentarily stunned, then his expression shifted as he asked in a deep voice, Are you saying that the place we are in is the storage space of an immortal? Li Yuan laughed heartily, his excitement growing, and nodded. That's right. It's likely been a long time, and since the immortal's space was never very stable, that's why some rifts appeared. Otherwise, we would never have been able to enter. The soil here is clearly relocated from the outside, and even the mountains and trees didn't grow here. They were brought in from outside. Wang Lin's eyes gleamed with a strange light, and he spoke slowly, brotherly, if this place were to collapse, would everything inside be destroyed? Li Yuan paused for a moment before nodding. That's right. This isn't the fragment continent from the outside. Once it collapses, the immense force will instantly break everything inside, leaving nothing behind. But Brother Su, don't worry. As long as no external force interferes, this place won't collapse. Unless, could it be that you? Li Yuan suddenly seemed to realize something, and he gasped sharply. A cold glint flashed in Wang Lin's eyes as he whispered, if that's the case, perhaps. I can set a trap for the blood ancestor. Even if they were to escape to the ends of the earth, or hide for 100 or 1,000 years, as long as they could evade the pursuit of that mighty immortal, everything would be worth it. He wouldn't even consider how to fight back because the gap between them was as vast as heaven and earth. Li Yuan thought Wang Lin's plan was close to madness, yet it was also incredibly clever. If calculated correctly, it might just succeed. At this thought, Li Yuan's heart raced. The temptation of slaying a mighty immortal who was at least in the pure nirvana stage made his blood race, and his heart pounded faster. Brother Su, are we going to slay an immortal? As Li Yuan said, this act was almost like slaying an immortal. The blood ancestor's strength, even when the thunder immortal realm hadn't been destroyed, could rival an immortal lord. Though not equal to one, the blood ancestor could still rule over an area. No cultivator from the lower realms would dare challenge him. Wang Lin licked his lips and said gravely, this matter still requires Brother Li's help. Once it's done, I will certainly reward you greatly. Li Yuan pondered for a moment. The thrill of slaying an immortal left his mouth dry, but he looked up at Wang Lin and said, Brother Su, there's no need to be so polite. You saved not only me but my entirely family for generations. Isn't slaying an immortal an exciting thing? How could I not accompany you on this? Wang Lin's eyes flashed coldly as he slowly said, the blood ancestor is not so easy to kill. It requires careful planning. Before we strike, Brother Li, you may want to leave first. Li Yuan nodded. That's fine. But before we proceed, we should search this storage space. We might miss some treasures. I'll also set up a few collapse points in this space. The two of them smiled at each other, then without further words, they began to move forward. Not only were there rifts flashing in the sky, but cracks would also occasionally appear on the ground. However, with their careful steps, they moved steadily toward the first valley ahead. The valley was surrounded by rocks, and there were quite a few trees on those rocks. As they walked, Wang Lin paused and looked at a nearby rock, his eyes showing signs of deep thought. He took a few steps forward, placing his right hand on the stone. His divine sense spread out and scanned it, then immediately returned the information. Previously, when Li Yuan had flown into the air, he had noticed that the storage space contained 2 mountain ranges and 3 valleys. Now, as Wang Lin looked at these mountains, he felt a trace of the Immortal World Mountain Stone's aura from his own storage pouch. With a plan in mind, Wang Lin withdrew his hand, and soon the first valley came into view. The entrance to the valley was wide, about several zhang wide, and the entire valley was visible. There was nothing inside except for a thin mist that gave it a slightly illusory feeling. At the valley entrance, Wang Lin and Li Yuan stopped, carefully observing the surroundings. There's a simple restriction here. Breaking it won't be difficult. Li Yuan formed hand seals, casting several restrictions. These restrictions emitted a glow as they fell into the valley, merging with the mist. A rustling sound echoed, and the mist quickly dispersed, vanishing without a trace in an instant. Li Yuan smiled faintly, about to step forward. At that moment, Wang Lin's gaze flickered, and he suddenly grabbed Li Yuan's arm, speaking in a deep voice, "Brotherly, hold on." Li Yuan was stunned and looked at Wang Lin. Wang Lin remained composed, and his immortal guard puppet appeared behind him, stepping forward without hesitation into the valley. However, the moment the immortal guard entered, mist once again began to rise within the valley. The mist rapidly condensed into sharp arrows, emitting a shrill sound as they sped toward the immortal guard at an alarming pace. Several booming sounds echoed through the air. Even the immortal guard's formidable physical strength was unable to withstand the force, and it was forced to retreat step by step until it exited the valley. Only then did the mist settle. Li Yuan felt a sense of shame. He wasn't reckless, but his overconfidence in his own restriction techniques had led him to underestimate the situation. He chuckled bitterly and said, "The owner of this storage space is truly malicious. This restriction was clearly set to target people like me, those overly confident in their own abilities." Wang Lin's eyes glinted, and with a thought, the immortal guard puppet stepped forward again. This time, the puppet was enveloped in a blinding golden light. It entered the valley and immediately punched, creating a powerful vortex. The swirling winds quickly pulled the flying mist into the vortex. Without hesitation, Wang Lin stepped into the valley, and Li Yuan followed closely behind. Once inside, Li Yuan immediately formed hand seals again, casting a series of restrictions that spread out and imprinted themselves on the valley's stone walls. Li Yuan then began to calculate with his fingers, his gaze sweeping around the valley. After a brief moment, he identified a spot, moving forward to cast another restriction. Wang Lin didn't pay attention to Li Yuan. Instead, upon entering the valley, he extended his right hand forward. Thunderous energy surged from his primordial spirit, forming a lightning ball that shot straight toward the vortex created by the immortal guard's punch. With a thunderous crash, the lightning ball collided with the vortex, and bolts of lightning coursed through it, causing the vortex to freeze in midair. It began to rotate automatically, absorbing all the incoming mist. "Brother Su, with the restrictions I've placed at the southeast corners of the valley, the restriction eyes will collapse. Once this is done, the valley's restriction will be broken," Li Yuan said, extending both hands. Restrictions appeared in his palms and rapidly shot toward the southeast stone walls. Wang Lin's mind stirred, and the immortal guard transformed into a blur, rushing toward the south. As Li Yuan's restrictions were imprinted on the stone wall, the immortal guard threw a punch directly at the stone wall. At the same time, Wang Lin's right hand gathered lightning, pressing against the eastern stone wall. Before Li Yuan could point to the exact spot, Wang Lin's hand accurately struck the hidden restriction eye on the wall. 2 massive explosions rang out, and immediately, the restrictions Li Yuan had set off earlier detonated. A powerful whirlwind emerged from the valley, sweeping away all the mist. After a brief moment, the whirlwind dissipated, and the valley was once again calm, revealing a previously hidden scene. A black short sword was embedded in the ground, surrounded by 8 fierce beast skulls. Thin tendrils of mist emitted from the skulls, swirling around the short sword, forming several concentric circles. This must be the first artifact in the valley. "Brother Su, would you prefer the short sword, or the 8 skulls surrounding it?" Li Yuan's gaze fell on the short sword, and he spoke slowly. Wang Lin glanced at it. He could tell that the short sword was no ordinary item, but Li Yuan had been of great help to him, so he didn't feel right taking it. He smiled and said, "This sword should indeed be special. In breaking the restrictions here, I owe it all to Brotherly. I'll take the 8 skulls instead." With that, Wang Lin flicked his sleeve, and the 8 skulls flew up, caught by Wang Lin in the air. His divine sense swept through them, and a shock surged through his heart. But on the surface, Wang Lin remained composed and stored the skulls away. Li Yuan laughed heartily and reached out, grasping the treasure sword in the air. Looking at Wang Lin, he said with a smile, "Thank you, Brother Su." After passing through the first valley and walking a short distance, they could clearly see the entrance to the second valley. This entrance was much smaller than the first. The closer they got to the second valley, the more frequent the cracks in the ground became. They had to tread carefully. However, even so, when they were about 10 miles from the entrance of the second valley, the path ahead was completely blocked. Within these 10 miles, there were numerous cracks flashing rapidly, densely covering the entire path and making it impassable. Li Yuan frowned. If this were a restriction, he could break it, but these cracks were not restrictions. After pondering for a moment, Li Yuan spoke in a low voice, "Brother Su, there's a problem here. In this storage space, teleportation is completely impossible." Wang Lin glanced at the distant valley entrance, his eyes flashing. He slowly spoke, "Brotherly, wait here for a moment. I have a way to enter this place." Wang Lin took a deep breath, sitting cross-legged on the ground. He formed a sword with his fingers and quickly touched several points on his body. Each time his fingertips made contact, his face would flush slightly. By the time he made his 9th point, his face had turned bright red. Wang Lin slowly stood up and, with a deep inhale, the redness on his face immediately faded. In that instant, he patted his storage pouch, and the rivers and mountains screen appeared. He tossed it, and instantly, a scene of mountains and rivers unfolded, covering the area within 1,000 zhang. All the cracks seemed to be patched up, disappearing at that very moment. The moment the rivers and mountains screen appeared, the immortal guard puppet behind Wang Lin crouched down, grabbing Wang Lin, and, with a flash of golden light, threw him forward. With this throw, the full force of the immortal guard was unleashed, and Wang Lin's speed reached an alarming level, charging forward and immediately covering 5 li. However, the rifts in this area were too numerous. The rivers and mountains screen, barely covering the area, seemed to tear apart as numerous gaps appeared, like large, gaping mouths from all directions, trying to devour Wang Lin. Using the power of the immortal guard, Wang Lin reached this point. Before his strength was exhausted, a flash of blood light enveloped his entire body. The divine abilities he had previously gathered on his body immediately activated. In a blink, his body shot forward with an unimaginable speed. The blood light flashed again, and his speed increased. With another flash, his speed grew even faster. In the blink of an eye, the blood light flashed 9 times, and his speed had reached a point where it seemed like teleportation. This blood light escape technique was the fastest of the many divine abilities within the soul of the elder from the land of demonic spirits. However, it could only be used if one's cultivation reached the peak of the great perfection. Otherwise, attempting to use it would cause one's body to explode and die immediately. In an instant, Wang Lin's figure appeared outside the second valley entrance. As soon as his body materialized, he turned pale, slightly staggering. He reached back with his right hand, and the rivers and mountains screen transformed into a folding screen, returning to his hand. Turning around, he could faintly see Li Yuan's figure from 10 li away.